For more on Obamacare, Snowden's asylum grant by Russia, and the seemingly endless string of White House scandals, I'm joined by Senator John Barrasso, Republican Policy Committee Chairman, a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and several others. Senator, great to have you with us.
Lou, thanks for having me this evening.
Let's start with Obamacare. This is starting to appear like the train wreck that John Boehner called it. What is going on here? We're talking 60 days from implementation of exchanges. This is starting to look like an impossibility as well as a train wreck.
Well, it's continuing to unravel. There are more and more people who think that the health care law will be bad for them, actually by 3 to 1 over people who think it will be good for them in terms of their cost and quality of care. Remember, Lou, what people were looking for from the beginning was access to care and affordable care, and they're getting neither. We saw that with the IRS agent who said, well, I like what I have, can I just keep it? The president promised that to people all around the country, and people are now seeing that they can't necessarily keep what they have if they like it. We have unions that are coming out against the health care law, including the union that represents all these IRS agents who are the enforcers of the health care law. You have Democrats jumping ship in terms of the employer mandate as well as the individual mandate as those bills pass the House of Representatives.
Well, the employer mandate, the individual mandate to be tested yet. At this point, we're talking about suspending a law, aren't we? I mean, as you point out, Daniel Werfel and the National Treasury Employees Union that represents the IRS, and there are 16,000 agents that are supposed to be hired to enforce Obamacare. I love that expression, enforce a health care program. This is really quite something, and the administration, does it have options here that it can exercise to buy itself time to recast this entire mess?
Well, that gets into the issue of what the administration is doing and whether it's legal or not. I wouldn't think that the president has the legal authority to just delay a part of the law, being the employer mandate, but on the same time saying, no, the individual mandate that everyone has to buy government-approved insurance by the first of the year. He wants to leave that part in place. So we know that the law is not just unpopular, it's also now unfair to how it treats American citizens. But this law is bad for people's paychecks, their jobs, as well as their health care.
Well, and we're all feeling the effects of the tax increases that have accompanied the onset of Obamacare. Let's turn to one other development that has to be, perhaps at least in the short term, even more embarrassing to the president. Today, Russia granting Edward Snowden 1 year's asylum, and the White House coming out with that piffle that you heard from Jay Carney. That was hardly a robust, vigorous response to what was a slap in President Obama's face.
Well, you're absolutely right. I think they said the White House was disappointed. You know, that's what your third grade teacher used to say to you. They're not mad, just disappointed. Let's face it, the president's reset with Russia has failed. The leader of Russia, Putin, does not fear the United States or this president. There are things that we ought to do. Number one is we ought to say we're not going to go to the G20 summit. We're not going to have the one-on-one meeting that the president was supposed to have with Putin in St. Petersburg at the end of this summer. That we ought to take a new look at the whole strategic arms reduction activity that the president has committed to. I think it was a mistake. I voted against that. But we ought to beef up our missile defense through our allies in Europe.
We should remind the audience as well, the president has basically proffered a reduction of a third of our nuclear weapons, is sort of a sign of good faith to enter into a negotiation. A remarkable initiative, perhaps the most remarkable ever taken by a president in arms reduction.
Well, he did that when he went to Berlin. He wanted to pretend that he was John Kennedy with his Ich bin ein Berliner speech. And I believe that the Russians at this point have no fear of the United States, no respect for this president, and it's because of the president's policies and the way that he has behaved as president of the United States.
Let's turn to the scandals. The president and his folks are aggressively trying to pin the label phony on the scandals that now in which they now find themselves embroiled. Your thoughts?
Well, for the president to label these phony scandals, I believe lowers the president's standing with the American people, because they know these scandals are not phony. When they talk about what's happened after Benghazi with the IRS, the IRS is at an all-time low, I believe. People have always been anxious about dealings with the IRS. Now there is, I see, raw anger at home in Wyoming about the IRS, the way it targets specific political groups, the way it wastes taxpayers' money. We saw that with these different conferences that they've had, these terrible videos that have come out, all with taxpayer money. The IRS is just spending money with no respect for the taxpayers. And now you see the IRS lobbying Congress. The union has told IRS agents, lobby Congress so you don't have to live under the Obama health care law, which is the law that you are being paid to enforce.
You know, as we watch all of this unfold, it's stunning, really, that there is so little effort on the part of the traditional watchdogs, the Fourth Estate, our liberal national media. There's no accountability. Is there likely to be any beyond the ballot box, beginning, of course, next year?
Well, I expected more, especially with the way that the White House has and the Justice Department has gone after reporters, whether it's the Associated Press phone lines, subpoenaing emails, going into the private dealings of the reporters and freedom of the press. But the press does not seem to be screaming to the level, Lou, that you or I would expect at times like these.
Well, Senator, we thank you for being with us. I look forward to talking with you again soon. Senator John Barrasso.
Thanks for having me, Lou.